And it's going to help me get my chat box up if anyone tunes in to watch. Come on down, bud. Thank you. Uh-oh. What?
Just sent it to these.
Oh, no.
Cabbage doesn't let you watch live things.
Oh, no. Sorry, we're just getting this up real quick. This is going to be a really, really sort of casual, laid-back stream, a lot like last night's was. This is, again, more so I get kind of used to doing this. I can't do anything well without some practice, and this is just practice. I really want to do some more planned out watercolor streams on this channel in the future, where I would actually be doing some Breaking Cat News related art. So in order to be ready for that, I really have to be painting a little bit beforehand on it and see how it works when I'm painting here. So last night I began the fictional drawings. There's a challenge right now on social media to draw 6 fictional characters, and or give me 6 fictional characters and I'll draw them. And these were suggestions that my friends gave me. And last night I did Heathcliff from Wuthering Heights, Princess Buttercup, and the Max. And this afternoon I did Melisande from Flight of Dragons, Stephen Toast from Toast of London, and The Crow. And I'm quite proud of this because I drew him completely from memory, and before I inked it, I just made sure. I did a quick Google image, and I got all of it right. Even like the scar, even these scars, the bullet holes, all of it. Just because I've been drawing and painting him forever. So without further ado, I'm going to start painting a little bit. And see how it works painting on the live stream and what I need to know for when I do this more seriously, inviting people in with more notice to see. Well, there's the Max's teeth. I'm left-handed, so I typically work from right to left. When I have a journal or a diary or my own private notebook, I work from the back to the front. It's more comfortable. When I was a teenager, I started doing that after years of being corrected in school not to do that. I just kind of gave up and started doing it anyway. I will say, Ashley, no, never, because I'm actually a teetotaler. I've never had alcohol in my life. So no, I've been drinking tea. But nothing stronger than tea, nothing stronger than coffee. And so, yeah, so when I was a teenager, I just finally started doing, writing in notebooks the way I wanted to, and working on art the way I wanted to, from right to left. Oh, thank you, Ashley. Thank you very much. Okay, so the Max is this big, cool purple dude. So I want to wait for this yellow wash to dry just a little bit more so that I don't go and smudge it. So I still have time to work on other things around him, which is what I'm going to do. Yes, hello. Yeah, the late night ones, like the one I did last night and this one, they are just much more casual, and you're watching me practice how to stream. I don't know how to do this very well just yet, and I have seen a lot of other artists who do streams all the time. I love to watch artists stream. The man, for his work, often has to set up live streams for live gaming events, and or he has had in the past. Now he does more video editing, but he's done a lot of live streams. And so it is something that he knows how to do quite well, and this is why I have a quick setup at home. uh, but it's not something that immediately comes naturally without practice, like anything else. So this is me practicing quite a bit. And I have not painted on this stream setup yet, so I want to know what I would need to think about and what I would miss. So far, it feels pretty comfortable. Oh, hey, Bill. Hey again. And cawing crow. Oh, yeah. Yes, I am left-handed, and I do have kind of the left-hand hook. I'm trying to hold it up so that I don't cover my work as I'm doing this, so that you can see what I'm doing. But I really have one of those hooks when I draw. All right, I'm going to give this is a little bit of definition, just a little bit of light blue watercolor in here. If you read the max, the ises, when they are in our world, the real world, they are jet black. And when they are in the outback, they are white. And so I am making an outback one, but I'm giving him just a little tiny light bit of shadow. And it might be kind of hard to see the light blue in this, but I'm going to build it up sort of slowly. And it's like with watercolor, particularly like illustration watercolor, which I usually do with a little bit more detail, uh, it's a lot of put it on, blot it off, put it on, blot it off. And I like to use this is like such a random thing, but you might want to know. Viva paper towels I happen to love specifically to blot with watercolors because they will blot and absorb very quickly without a lot of texture. And I actually like to have regular paper towels for certain textures, especially scales or stone. But Viva I like because it's just, ooh, so absorbent. It's not a plug or a sponsorship or anything, but you might want to know. Ashley asks, wondering when you started drawing, if it's just natural or something to be cultivated. Oh, something to be cultivated, big time. I was always drawing when I was a kid. I always really enjoyed it. When I was about 12 years old, I got very serious about it and I started really practicing all the time without exaggeration. From like 12 to 16 or 17, that's like all I did when I came home from school. I wrote stories and I drew to illustrate those stories. And I initially began drawing. I had a tarot deck that I drew the cards from over and over. And I traced some of the cards until I kind of had the muscle memory down. And then I drew what I had been tracing. And then I drew it without the card. And then I drew it, but I changed it. And I was 12. I was groping around in the dark. I had art in school, but I didn't have art lessons out of school at that point at all. And I was just trying to figure it out, and that worked and made sense to me. And then when I was in seventh grade for Easter, my mother gave me The Crow. And then I drew most of that comic over and over and over and over. And I also used to really like to draw the members of the classic rock group The Who. That might be a little bit out of left field when I'm teenage girl stuff, tarot cards, The Crow, 1970s classic rock, The Who. But I love The Who, and I drew Roger Daltrey, Pete Townshend, Keith Moon, and John Entwistle over and over and over again. And yeah, that's another way that I learned to draw. So a lot of practice. I was very bad when I started. I mean, real bad. Um, oh, just awful. Truly, like I'm not being cute. I really wasn't very good. I just had a dream, and I really, really wanted to do it, and I worked very hard on it, and I enjoy it. I enjoy drawing, so I think that it's a little bit easier to get good at something that you enjoy, that relaxes you, because if you do anything enough times, it starts to stick. I truly think. Um, I don't know if you can get the paints into the frame, but very interesting. Oh yeah, yeah. I'll try to. I have the paints right next to me. They're right here. So that's one tray that I work with, and then I work with this tray. And I can show you real quick before. Oh, my trays look so dirty. to me. I'm sorry. No one ever sees them. I can show you really quick. These are Elvis's suspenders and Lupin's tie. This is Elvis's fur. This is Pucky's pants. These are Elvis's pants mixed with a little bit of black. This is Goldie's coat. Goldie's coat down here. This is the purple in Puck and Elvis's ears, and this is the pink that appears in um, Lupin's nose and ears. And yeah, that's so that's where all they are. Uh, oh, I've always wanted to make a tarot deck. I really would like to do that very much. I actually want to make kind of a traditional one that's like illustrations, kind of like these. But I also really want to do a Breaking Cat News one, and I've already thought of certain cards. Kit Chase and Aurora, obviously the lovers. I think Tabitha the Judge would be pretty cool. Um, Maybe Tilly as like a very lighthearted death. I'm not sure if I'd want to go that route, but it would be kind of cool. Most likely Lupin is the hangman or the hanging man. And yeah, Ashley, definitely keep practicing, like for sure. Do the BCN gang play instruments? Oh, um, Lupin plays the breaking things very late at night in real life. He's terrific at that. He's right here too. Again, all these streams have shown like how Lupin is right here when I'm working. Hi, buddy. The man play in real life. The man plays the saxophone, and he play. You know, he can kind of just sort of teach himself stuff a lot. He plays ukulele and he sings very very nicely. Uh, yeah, so there's a little bit of music happening in the house. All right, I'm gonna now. Part of why I paused was also utilitarian because I need this yellow stripe to draw before I put my hand down there. So here we go again. The Max is a big purple dude, and so I want to kind of get down a very light wash of purple to begin with, and then I'm going to bring down some more pigment into it to sort of define some of his shapes. But right now, I'm not worried about the shapes as much. I'm worried about getting that initial hue down so that I can define where the purple is for myself. I work very with a lot, like just a little tiny touch of pigment at first, just the lightest touch. You don't want it to be too heavy. Um, what I like about watercolors, there are a few different ways to work with watercolors. Sorry, Lupin. There are a few different ways to work with watercolors. There's a way to do it where you sort of wet the page first and then you drop the pigment in. I love to do that for water and sky scenes. There is a way to do it straight with dark pigments, kind of like acrylics. That is chaos to me. I've seen people do it and they're amazing. They're incredible. No, no, nope. Uh, that seems way too hard to me. What I like to do, my favorite method is this. Very light washes, and then you just sort of build them up. And you build them up and you make them darker where you want them to be darker. And I am kind of thinking about his muscles just a little bit as I do this. I am leaving some more light spots over his shoulders and his pectoral pecs, his pecs. Um, I don't pronounce anything right when a camera's on me. That's rule number one. And I'm going to be very careful as I get into here. I have had people ask me, how do you stay in the lines? And I think that comes with a lot of practice. I love to watercolor. I really enjoy it. I do it all the time. It is the quickest way I have to color anything. And so if I ever have to do decorations for my kids' parties, or I have to do a card for something, or if I have to color anything in very fast, I always use watercolors because I am very fortunate that I've practiced with them long enough now. I really started with watercolors when I was about 19, and I am 38 now. Many years. That they are just very comfortable for me. They feel sort of like an extension of my hands, and if you work with them long enough, they just sort of start to feel that way. Are these off the shelf colors, or do you have to work at getting your own consistent blend? Are the colors limited for newspaper print? That's a great question, Bill. Uh, I am very lucky that these colors all happen to work for newsprint. It's more that I need to save when I do put the comic all together after I scan the paintings. I save the file in a correct color format for newspapers, which I believe is CMYK. I'm a little dyslexic, and so letters, when they're abbreviations like that, are difficult for me sometimes. But it's that color scale. Um, and so that has been very fortunate. Most of these colors are just straight out of the tube, except the red. The red is a mix of cadmium red and alizarian crimson, and I just do that because for me, alizarian crimson, it was great for a bunch of years, and then for some reason, Winsor Cotman sort of made it a little darker. I don't know why, and I didn't really like how dark it was, so I started cutting it with cadmium red to just sort of just brighten it a little bit, make it pop a little bit, I guess. Uh, One last question, Georgia. What's your favorite TV show or movie of all time, and has it had any influence on your drawings? Actually, these questions are great. Um, hmm. Oh, that's a really good question. The first thing that comes to my mind, because I watched it when I was a very small child, and I was just obsessed with it, and I still am obsessed with it, and one of the characters is right here. Uh, the I believe it is 19. I want to say it's a 1985 animation, but I might be wrong. It's a Rankin Bass animation, and it's called The Flight of Dragons. And I watched that to pieces as a child. I just adored it, and as an adult, I really adored it. And again, that period of time I'm talking about in my life when I was learning to draw, which was a lot of fun, uh, I drew a lot of the characters from that movie, and I drew a lot of the dragons that way. And I actually, um, I love to draw dragons. I love to paint dragons. I do not share those drawings very often because they are so closely modeled on the Flight of Dragons that I don't even know if it borders on fan fiction. It's more like I'm just sort of ripping it off. I haven't found my own dragons yet, is basically the nicer way of saying that. That's not so self punishing, that cuts me a little bit of slack to myself. Um, those are the dragons that I really like to draw, and so I don't always share dragon drawings that I do because I'm basically just drawing Gorbash and Schmergel a lot and Brayog, the bad guy. But that movie probably had a really big impact on my drawing, I would think. Uh, Favorite TV show is really that is hard to pinpoint. I have a lot of comfort TV shows. I love Cheers from when I was a kid. Um, I really love Cheers. I love Red Dwarf. My mother is a Trekkie, so I grew up with a lot of Star Trek, and I went to Trekkie conventions as a child. That is true, and it was wonderful. And I really liked it. It got me comfortable with cons at a very young age, which that ended up being really helpful in kind of a funny way later on, obviously. Uh, so Star Trek is very comforting to me. Um, I think of other shows that I just watched to pieces. I love the TV show Spaced. It's a British television show. That's a great one. That's another comfort show. I just like to have it on in the background while I work. I liked Northern Exposure as a kid. I liked Twin Peaks a lot, which is a lot darker than the other ones I'm describing, but still great show. And Star Trek or Star Wars? I I I love Star Wars. I like Star Wars quite a bit. Uh, I have some that I like more than others. I think like most people. I actually really have enjoyed The Mandalorian. I thought that was so much fun, like really fun. More fun than I expected in a while. When I was a child, I was obsessed with Star Wars, and it was funny because my mother's very into science fiction, very into Star Trek, and she was not a huge fan of Star Wars because she will argue that Star Wars is a fantasy, not a sci-fi. And I would argue with her, because mother daughters, we love to argue, and she would always kind of bite back. It has a princess, Georgia. It's a fantasy. It has a princess. So she's not entirely wrong. But I love them both now. Now that I'm older, I think that they're hard to compare. They're both very fully realized worlds. I think that Star Trek is a little bit more fully realized, and they have more of a direction sometimes. I love a lot of the Star Trek characters quite a bit. I love Quark and Odo from Deep Space Nine in particular. I think that they have a terrific dynamic, and I just love them. They have a classic dynamic. I call it, for shorthand, I call it the rabbit and Tigger dynamic, if that makes sense. Rabbit and Tigger. Lupin and Elvis have this very similar dynamic in the comic, and it's sort of where you have one really serious curmudgeon-y character and one very light-hearted wild card character, and they just oppose each other in really fun, entertaining ways. And those are some of my favorite characters in television and fiction. I mean, just in general. Jim Halper and Dwight Schrute are another great example of a Tigger and a rabbit dynamic. And I think that Quark and Odo just have that so well, and they're so much fun. On Next Generation, I love Data. Who doesn't? I love Worf quite a bit. Um, I mean Jean-Luc Picard, of course. But yeah. But yes, I love, love, love Star Wars too. I don't want to. I was very much. I was born in 1981, so I was born in like the height of Star Wars mania, and I had little Star Wars Underoos as a little child with C-3PO and R2-D2 on them, and my son is named Luke, so he is technically named after. I named him after Saint Luke, but Luke Skywalker really helped. Hey, buddy. Hey, Lupin, how you doing? Oh, he loves this. Hey, I know. Hi. You see a paintbrush? Yeah. Yeah. I'm letting this wash dry again. I'm not very happy with what I've got going on with his muscle structure because it is a big old mess. He is just a sack of potatoes right now. These aren't real. Like, not like what muscle is that? Like, but it's okay. It looks good at a glance, and that's kind of it's a little smoke and mirrors sometimes. Uh, but he looks all right. You could say it's a peck. It's not a peck. That doesn't. It's not in the right spot. He's kind of mushed in there. But I am enjoying how he looks right now. I'm going to put a little bit more detail on him later when things have drawn better. Oh, yay! Yes, the Max is so good. I love the Max. I'm adding in some kind of cool, just some fun feather colors, just to kind of make it a little interesting. And I'll lighten them up. And maybe he has another one from that bird over here. Or that creature, really, because it's from the outback. Could be anything. Gonna color in some interesting little beads over here just to kind of pull the color through again. I like to do stuff like that. Another bead over here, bead over here. And yeah. Now that I have the blue details in, I'm going to bring in some sort of light burnt sienna brown details to kind of juxtapose the blue. I'm little more quiet when I paint, and that's kind of one more reason why I wanted to do like a late night casual practice stream of this, because it is the idea of getting myself used to talking on stream, especially while I am painting, because I zone out when I paint quite a bit. And that some of that is just going to happen when I'm painting on a stream, whether I want it to or not. But sort of learning the flow of when I should be talking a little bit. But the good part of that really is that I have to pause a lot when I am watercoloring, because I have to let these little tiny mini washes dry. And if I don't, when I pass my hand over them, they're going to get all messed up. So there's a lot of pausing in watercolors. For people who know me in my real life, if I am on Facebook way too much in a night and you just see like 1,000 posts from me, I'm watercoloring. That that's what it looks like. If I am all over the place and I am posting about all sorts of different things and it's real quick, and you've got a link to a song from 1989, and then you've got a thought about politics, then you've got a picture of my kids, and it's been 45 minutes, I'm watercoloring. I have a lot of different breaks. So I'm just getting a little bit of definition into this little cool mane that he has going on. I think I'm going to phase some of this part out with purple because I don't like how it's come in. It doesn't really flow very well to me. I'm going to fix that. And I'm also going to do some like really quick feathery motions with some paint. And in honor of Sam Keith, I'm also going to do some like kind of splashes of watercolor toward the end of this as well. And yes, this is much more close to doing my own thing, the Brat Queen. How do you keep cat hair out of the art? I'm not always able to. I try. If you see me when I'm doing this, if you see me go all of a sudden, that's probably a cat hair. There's cat hair in my paint trays constantly, and that I just kind of have to work around it. I do vacuum quite a bit, and we have a Roomba, and that makes a big difference. That really helps. Hi. Are you invisible? Yeah. Oh, big yawn. Yeah. 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 Oh, get over here. Alright, so I'm letting these more detailed parts sort of blend in. Now I'm going to go back to the purple real quick. Not for much longer. For a quick character study, I think that this Max is actually close to being done. He looks pretty good, and there's not much more I could do to him without ruining him. I'm going to blend this wash a little bit better. I like the effects of watercolor when you have a lot of pigment and you pull it through a bit after some light washes. I'm going to do just a little fun splash of color. There we go. That's very the Max. When this has dried, this corner, I am going to put in a few more little details in the brown, but right now, if I add anything to that, the paper is so saturated with water, it's just going to be mud. It's going to be a mess, so I'm not going to touch it. Instead, we are going to move on to Princess Buttercup. Oh, Ashley, the cat next to me is Lupin. This is Lupin. Yeah, he's a good boy. Can I give you a kiss? Nope. Some of the cats let us. Elvis does. He's good about it, but he's like not having it at all. Hi. Okay. All right, I'm going to move on to Buttercup. And I'm going to start with her skin tones. Very, very, just lay those out. And when I had her sketched out last night, the pencil marks I had for her were much better. And when I erased them, I lost the softness in her jaw. So I need to sort of bring that back because I see a lot of softness in her features that I would really like to keep if I could. She is in white, and again, I like to define, if I have a really, really, really light white, I like to kind of define it with a little bit of light blue for shadowing. You can do this with like purples, you can do it with browns or greens. I just really like to get a little bit of definition in there. I don't like just plain white. It looks weird. I'm going to do it to the tiara too. Just throw some, just a little bit here, just a little bit here and there, just to kind of give it like, okay, there's some substance to this. I'm going to do her eyes while I'm here. And I want them a little bit lighter. Can't do anything for her skin for right now, so I'm going to switch to her hair. I'm going to put down a very, very fair undercoat of yellow, but I'm not going to just keep it yellow, because that would be really vibrant, a little too vibrant. When you see me flip the paintbrush around very fast, what that means is that I have lost a little bit of the wet point to the brush, and so I am flipping it really quick to get another thin point or edge to paint with. I have had people ask me, you know, a gentleman a bunch of years ago asked, "Why do you spin your paintbrushes like drumsticks when you're painting?" I didn't know I did it. I hadn't thought of it much, but that is what is going on. I am just flipping it to get to a sharper point. I've worn out one of the edges of the brush. Alright, that's a good undercoat for her hair. Just a nice base to start out with. Now her face pigment should be dry enough again to go back to it. Is there any pencil on there still, or is it ink? I erased all the pencil from this, so now this is just ink. Sometimes I leave some of the pencil marks in if I kind of like the look or if I like the sketchiness of it. In this case, I didn't end up doing that. I almost did for Heathcliff, but I decided against it in the end. Now I'm going to bring in a second, more like a shadow coat. So this is what I was saying before. I like to build up layers, darker layers of watercolor, using very, very thin layers of pigment. So I don't use very much pigment. I really water it down, and then I just sort of build it up very slowly. And one reason I love to do that is if I make a mistake, I can actually correct. Now I haven't yet, but you'll see me, I'm sure. If I make a mistake, I can bring it back up with water very quickly. And for the most part, sometimes I can't, but for the most part, I can. I'm going to define her nose a little bit more. Hate painting and drawing noses. Don't like unless it's like a wizard or a witch or like a real gnarled character that I can have a lot of fun with it. But when I need to do like a little dainty nose, oh my gosh, like one drop of ink out of place and they have three nostrils. Like it's just that fast. It's annoying. And I want her to look very fair and very delicate because it's Princess Buttercup and Melisande, I gave her, like, my drawing of her, she has seen some stuff. I gave her some very haunted, sad eyes. I need to fix them in the painted process. But also, if you watch Flight of Dragons, that kind of works. Like, she has moments in that movie where she does look like this, especially when the sandmerks come. All right. Hi. You just watching? Yeah. All right. Let me. Nope. Too dark. And that's why I work in very, very light pigments, because I could immediately be like, oh no, that's terrible. So now I'm just working with a slightly darker one, and I'm just kind of defining where I want some shadows to be before I add in more details. Just kind of building out the bulk of her hair a little bit. I don't want her hair to just be blazing yellow. Even though her name is Buttercup, that would be a lot. You don't see hair like that, so it would be kind of weird. I'm going to do her lips, but I don't want to be too pink. I want more like a, let me show you while I do this, because I am going to be mixing some colors. I'm going to do a little bit of brown, a little bit of pink, a little bit of brown. See if it works. Looks okay. Good start. I'm not ready to put the color in her cheeks yet. In Breaking Cat News, I always give the people little rosy, blushy cheeks. I love doing that. When I do comics, it's really fun. When I do illustrations, I'm a little bit more careful of it, but I do also put that in, like just a little bit. Give her a little bit of a smoky eye. I don't know if I like the shape this is doing, but not too bad. Hi. Okay. Try to define her eyes and her lashes just a little bit more than they have been. Give her some sturdy 1980s brows. Now I'm going to start pulling in more details with her hair. I am actually doing a lot of mixing off screen for her hair, and I'll try to do that more so you can see it. I want a little bit of reddish and I want a little bit of dark brown, but not too much. So then I cut it with like a sand color that I've got over here. And pull it back through over here. Ah, yes, it is Stephen Toast. I absolutely love comedian and musician Matt Berry, British comedian and musician Matt Berry. He's hilarious. He's absolutely hilarious. Toast of London is a little bit more of a grown-up show. So if anyone out there, if you are younger and you are watching this stream, wait on that one because it is a grown-up show with grown-up themes. But it is very, very funny if you are of an age where you can watch stuff like that and you appreciate stuff like that. Um, Stephen Toast is just this terrific sort of cad character a little bit. If you read my other comic, Swan Eaters, he sort of reminds me of a character, Uncle Awful, He's just terrific. I love Stephen Toast, and I listen to a lot of Matt Berry's music. And if you have never listened to Matt Berry's music, it is on Spotify, and I believe it's on YouTube as well. And you just put in Matt Berry, and stuff should come up. And his album Kill the Wolf in particular is very, very good. Witch Hazel is very good. Um, I think the other one is The Small Hours. I'm not great with album names and such. But wow, it's all good. You won't find anything bad. It really is. It's a lot of the music that I like to listen to when I'm working. All right. All right, and I'm gonna kind of cut some of the brown here in a few places, just lighten it up with some water and some Viva, some paper towel. Pull it back up. Just pull it back up. I don't want to get rid of too much of it, but I do want it to be more of a blonde than a dirty blonde. I'm going to give her a little bit of heavy brown through her eyelashes. Maybe a little bit of black in there too. Just to redefine those. Hi, you having fun? Are you having fun, Lupin? Yeah. I talk to Lupin all the time. He can't hear me, but I do talk to him a lot. Hi, bud. Yeah, you're a good boy. Yeah. You staying up with me? Hmm? Lupin is missing his collar right now. Every few days lately, it seems to go missing. It's actually very good that it goes missing. It's a breakaway, so he has probably gotten himself into something and broken away. It will turn up. It always does. Kept turning up in my studio's closet for a while. It is usually red. The boys in the comic, Elvis, Lupin, and Puck, all of their ties are the colors of their collars. Elvis has a black collar, Puck has a green collar, and Lupin has a red collar. Alright, now I'm going to give Buttercup a little bit of rosy softness to her cheeks, very carefully. The way I'm going to do this is a little precarious. I'm going to put it down. I'm going to wait for some of it to absorb into the paper, and then I'm going to try to blot up the rest of it, and we'll see if it works. I may have to take some of it up with a brush, just a little bit. I like it mostly. I think it came out pretty good mostly. Hi. Let me move my brushes, bud. Okay. I like her rosiness in her cheeks. I'm gonna let her fully dry, and I think I'm actually gonna just give her some, like, I don't know, some like freckles across her nose. I don't think Real Buttercup had that, but I like that touch, and I think that that would look kind of pretty. Hey, Matt Nelson, how are you? Hi. Everyone, Matt Nelson writes Catbeard the Pirate, which is an awesome adventure comic. It is very, very good, and you should check it out. How are you, Matt? there's a lag. Let me see here. Oh, I'm going to add some more details to her dress. I'm going to add just a few like little blue details to her dress. Again, kind of like hints of embroidery. Probably these little flowers that I like to do. You'll see me put these little flowers everywhere in patterns and in the comic. I really like these little flowers. They're pretty. Oh. Get this. So she has a bodice of the little flowers, and then I'm going to kind of put like sort of like little dots a little bit just along the sleeves and the underpinning, and that'll show at a quick glance for the eye that it's a slightly different pattern, the dress underneath. It looks like a lot when you're finished with it, but it's not that hard to just throw them in there. I'm going to put a few more darker spots on her crown. I'm going to define her eyes just a teeny, teeny, tiny bit more. Very carefully. Put a little bit of definition to this. Take out some of the color in the eyes again. And I feel like Buttercup is pretty done. She looks, I'm pretty happy with how she came out. She's pretty fun. Alright, so now we've reached Heathcliff. And I'm excited for Heathcliff. Looks like I already got a little dot of paint dropped next to him that I think is just going to become part of this. But I might be able to get it up. Well, it's a little bit better than it was. Now, Heathcliff is a little swarthy, so I'm going to give him a darker complexion. Give him some shadows and pull them back up. The watercolors I use are mostly Winsor Cotmans. I like them quite a bit. They're pretty great. I've been using those since I was about 19, and the reason I originally used them were they are what my father uses. And my father insisted that I try watercolors out. And I'm very grateful that he did insist that, because they ended up being a very good fit. And he was right. That's what he thought. He said everything that I was drawing looked like it needed to be watercolored. My father's an artist too. He is a photographer, and he was the local newspaper photographer back home in Rhode Island for many, many, many years. I grew up, that's kind of the funny part of Breaking Cat News. I grew up very much in a newspaper. That's where I went. That was my dad's work. My parents were divorced, so he would take me on visitation. And when he took me on visitation on Thursdays, I pretty much went to the Narragansett Times and watched how newspapers got put together while my father developed the photographs for that week that he shot. It was fun. It was cool to see the hustle and bustle of a newspaper. Brushes are all over the place. I don't really have good advice for brushes. Um, I have purchased a host of brushes that I could afford over the years when I could afford to get new ones at the time. And then I sort of became married to them and just used them a lot. And then it was very hard to like want to change them. And so, what is this one? This one's an artist's loft. So this is like Michael's sort of generic brand. It's great though. It's a really great rounded brush, and I end up using it for a lot of things. Another brush I use a lot is this one, and this one does not have any kind of marking on it, so I'm not certain. I'm sorry. Here we are. I'm going to give Heathcliff a dark coat wash, but I am going to do a little bit of a hint of like a Night's Watch plaid on it. I love to draw a plaid or paint a plaid. You may have noticed that in the comic, the man is always wearing plaid shirts. In real life, he wears them occasionally. He wore them a lot when the comic started, but he doesn't wear them as much anymore. But I have continued painting them just because I really enjoy doing a plaid. And so I end up knowing some of the different plaids, just a few of them. I cannot immediately recreate a proper Night Watch plaid just from memory at the moment, but it will have elements of the Night Watch pattern, which is to say, it will have some dark navies and some dark greens. If I am not mistaken, the Night Watch plaid is a Scottish plaid. I might be wrong. All right. Nope, Heathcliff is still a little wet, so I'm not going to be putting details on him just by yet. I have tried angled drawing boards as a watercolorist. Do not recommend. I have seen watercolorists who can do it, but because I work with very wet washes, I just ended up with a very particular look, which was all of the paint running down the page. So elevated or angled drawing boards do not work for me and the way I paint. But I have seen them. I have seen other artists use them with great success, and even watercolorists. And I don't know how they work that magic, but it does not work with the washes that I do. I'm going to do the first wash on Heathcliff's hair, which is going to be quite dark. I don't want to make his hair just completely jet black though, because I do want to be able to add in a little bit of detailing and um, sort of mass or shape to it with darker blacks. He is swarthy, and he is listening to mid-2000s emo music. Yes. Leah B, yes. Lupin has stepped in what colors, very much as you've seen him, how he hangs out tonight. He has done that in the past, where he's stepped in paint and then run across paint. He also, uh, my children have a play table that is painted like a mushroom that I painted many years ago. And if you flip that table upside down, there is one perfect little cat paw print on it, and it is where Lupin ran across it at the time that I was painting it, and it was very funny. I'll try to take a picture of it and post it sometime. It's cute. We forget, and then every time if we're moving or if we have to move the table and it's flipped upside down, we'll be like, oh, there's Lupin's little paw print. This is kind of a jolly blue that I've got going on right here. It's a really happy Thallian blue, and that is not what I want to happen for Heathcliff. I want him to be very dour. Yeah, that's a depressing blue. There we go. There's no joy in this color blue. Oh, it's such a sad blue. It's almost gray. Yes. See, that's where mixing the colors comes together real good. If I gave him like a real poppy, like bright Smurf blue vest, it'd just kind of be like, whoa, Heathcliff. You seem like you're in a good mood today, Heathcliff. On the moors. Hard to be in a good mood on the moors. I mean, apparently, according to every book in the 1800s. I would be delighted to be on the moors. Only because I've read so much about the moors. I just love them. Alright, alright. What am I doing? What am I doing? Now, I'm going to define some of the colors in his white shirt as well, but I'm not going to go with a light blue, because again, Buttercup is like light and happy and airy. Heathcliff is moody and murderous and full of revenge. So he doesn't really have time to keep his shirts bleached white. You know, he's got murder on the mind. So they're a little dingy. Not too dingy. Not gonna like put straight up stains on them or anything. But there is gonna be a little bit more of a darkness to it. Oh, Matt, thank you. I love watercoloring. So now Heathcliff just, he doesn't look dirty, but he also doesn't look like, nothing's like bright, he's not like a really sunny, bright, happy kind of character. I am going to fix that tie. That tie is going to be different. I'm going to give him some really nice dark eyes. Really nice dark eyes. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Pull up the pigment just a teeny, teeny, tiny bit. See what I'm working with? Yeah, I like that. Now it's time to start on the second pigments on his face. I had to wait because his face was very wet. And anything that I tried to add on would have been really, really muddy. So let's try now and see what we got. Nope, 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 nope. That pigment went a little too far. And Heathcliff is tired because he's running on the moors all the time at night. You give him some kind of sleepy circles under his eyes. Maybe. We'll see. This is another one where I'm going to put the pigment down and then I might sort of pull the pigment back up. We'll see. But so far I'm very happy with this Heathcliff. I'm going to give him sort of a brass goldish pocket watch. Just sort of tarnished, dingy. Again, Heathcliff eventually becomes a character who has great wealth. He could afford a really nice, really anything. But he is weird and obsessed with revenge. He is sleeping on those moors. He's got bugs and birds' nests and leaves everywhere, probably. And he just, he's not going to be polishing his pocket watch. It's little stuff like that. And that makes a character more believable when you draw them or paint them, I think. Like, if you look at a glance and you see, like, oh, wow, Buttercup's got someone doing her dry cleaning. Buttercup is well taken care of. Prince Humperdinck is making sure that, her crown's looking good, her dress is pressed, she looks great. And that, boom, you see that when you see her clothes. Heathcliff, I'm going to be putting some, like, stains on his coat, rolled around in some lamp oil. Probably trying to set himself on fire because he's just not in great moods. He's just got a lot going on. There's a lot of baggage. There's a lot of baggage on the moors. And he still needs to be darker. Now I'm painting on cardstock, which I do not recommend for watercolors, by the way. Don't paint on cardstock. Don't do what I do. Uh, when I paint like a nice fancy kind of storybook illustration sort of thing, I do not typically paint it on cardstock very often because cardstock absorbs the paper very differently, and if you put a lot of pigment onto it, it will sort of warp the paper, which is what made me think of this because it's happening a little bit. I draw the comic on cardstock because the comic is so small that in any given point it's not having really big watercolor washes. And I have also, over the years, I have relearned how the watercolors will look on cardstock. You have to paint much, much lighter because they dry a lot darker on cardstock. Cardstock pulls the water and the pigment in and just kind of locks it there. There's not a lot of there's not a lot of give to it. You can't change it very much. I paint on cardstock for the comic because I go through a tremendous amount of paper doing the comic. All of the comic is done by hand with pencil and ink and paint. And what that means is that every week I generate 3 finished pages of comics that are paper. And so I go through quite a bit of paper because that's the comic itself. It's not also everything that goes along with the comic or anything extra for the comic, any any promotional paintings I decide to do, any paintings that I do that I use for a calendar or something. That's all in addition, and so it's a lot of paper. I go through cardstock just because it's easier to attain and it's a little bit more affordable. And it holds the paint really well. I've had some of these comics now, obviously almost, well past 6 years, and they're all holding up. They're all looking good. And I had painted on cardstock when I was a teenager as well, and those have held up pretty well over the 20 years almost now that I'm coming up on real fast. Goes fast. How many comics per page? Um, that's a good question. It the dailies are 4 comics to a page. I'll pull one out really quick. Um, the daily strips are 4 comics to a page, and I try to do that so that I get all of it finished. So here's one of the dailies. I work very small. So here is that. And then one of the Sundays go on one piece of paper. I'm trying to see if there's a Sunday that has been published already. I don't think there is. Oh, I have a really cute one that's coming up that I could sneak peek. Here, we'll do a sneak peek. So there's a really cute one that the girl is having a tea party. That one's coming up soon. And Pucky in his hat. Could you just die? I love drawing Pucky in really cute hats. But this is one Sunday strip. So the Sundays are a little bit bigger. And that's how many comics that I can fit on a page, depending on if they are a daily strip or a Sunday strip. Okay, let me get back to Heathcliff's hair. Well, I hear my son. It is 11:50. My son is awake. If you were here last night, you know that I was sharing that we've all been having a hard time sleeping. I'm sure some of you have had a hard time sleeping. We've all got a lot going on right now. Just this is hard, and my children have had a heck of a time sleeping. But then they sleep in the morning, so that part of it's kind of good. But we're putting them down at 8, and then they wake up with bad dreams, or they just take a long time to go to sleep, or so I can hear him out where the man's office is in the next room. The man's office is like a den area in our house, sort of. It would have been like a den or a family room, I think, traditionally. But it works very well for the stuff that he needs to have out for his work. Again, I'm kind of making Heathcliff a little scraggly. I'm going to start defining his eyes a little more with some browns and some purples and see how they come out. I still want to get some better circles under his eyes, and I might put a little bit of light blue in there too, just to kind of get like a little bit of a visceralness or like a veininess. Alright. I'm going to give him sort of a dark gray tie. Uh, oh, how does the ink lines not lift off or run when making it so wet with watercolors? That's a great question. I use pens that are waterproof, and that's huge. Uh, if you want to do pen and ink with watercolor, you definitely should use a waterproof pen. And so this is I use Pigma Microns. There are others too. This is just the one that I happen to use and really like. Um, yeah, and they say right here, micropigment ink for waterproof and fade-proof fine lines. And I have pieces of work that I used these pens on like my senior year of high school, and they still look very good. So I highly recommend, and they're very affordable. They're an affordable option. They're great. But that is how the ink is staying in place. What are my favorite things to paint, and what are my least favorite? Whew. I love to paint, like I said before, I love to paint a plaid. I love to paint rust and like lichen and wood grain, a little bit of bark, things like that. I like to paint those things with watercolors. They come out very fun. Probably my least thing to try and tackle to paint is like a car. Um, Not in real life. I've actually had to paint and sand. I've actually had to sand and airbrush and paint a dent in a car before. I can do stuff like that, thankfully. Also, thanks to my father. Um, but I mean like a drawing of a car. I have had to try and paint a drawing of a car for the comic or just for other things, and I don't like doing it. I don't know. It always comes out weird. It feels weird when I do it. And all right, I want a dark, sad blue. I want another dark, sad blue. No happy blues on Heathcliff, just sad blues. He's got the blues. Blues so dark you're not really sure that they're blue. Because that is definitely gray. Maybe lighten up the next one just a little bit. So now you're gonna watch me paint a plaid. If you wanna stick around and watch a plaid. Love painting a plaid. It's just very relaxing. I like putting together a plaid. It's very rare that I paint a proper plaid tartan print, meaning that it's an actual clan or an actual fam. I'm Irish, so that stuff it might not make much like matter that much outside of Irish and Scottish families, but believe me, it matters. So I don't always paint an actual true tartan or plaid. Uh, there have been a few paintings. There's one of Bert in particular that is a St. Patrick's Day painting, and it's on the Facebook page we have, I'm sure, but you'll see it. It's Bert on the stone wall, and he has a plaid blanket, and one of the robber mice, I believe it's Agnes, is going by, and she has a little four-leaf clover. It's like a cute St. Patrick's Day print. And the tartan for that particular plaid is the Quinn tartan for Winifred Quinn. So I did in that case do an accurate tartan. And to be honest, I'm not certain I'm using the word tartan correctly. I hope I am, but I'm not sure if I am. But the particular plaid is what I mean to say. And Quinn is a family name for me. It was my grandparents' name, and so I do know that one. Now, when I paint a plaid or a collar or any kind of pattern on a coat or a shirt that happens to have an upturned collar or a sleeve, when I follow the stripes through, I like to break them up. And the reason that I like to break them up is they're not going to follow through the same way. They're just not. If they are patterned on something, the collar is going to be shaped wrong, a sleeve is going to get in the way. And so if you break them up like this, just a tiny bit, it looks a little bit more natural. All right, so while I have that, I'm going to give Heathcliff kind of like a miserable vest pattern. Now, it doesn't have to be literal sad faces, although that would be hilarious. Just something that kind of reminds the eye of something sort of unpleasant. Again, doesn't have to be like, I don't have to put little knives all over it or something. I'm just going to do little upturned V's. Little little sad mustaches. We're just going to do little sad mustaches. And again, it's like a subtle miserable pattern. The viewer isn't going to take it in and look at it and go, "Wow, Georgia drew a bunch of sad mustaches. She's some kind of genius." No one's going to do that. But what they're going to do is it's not going to clash with everything else going on. That's why I'm doing it. I am making this pattern sort of sad and bleak and boring so that the eye looks at it, roams over it, and just sort of dismisses it. It doesn't stop in the middle of everything. We're not giving him some flowers. We're not giving him hearts. We're not even giving him dots because dots are kind of cheerful. We're just giving him little miserable, sad, upturned mustaches, and the eye will look at them, process them, and let them go. But he'll still have a little pattern on his vest because it would be weird to me for the vest to be plain. Yes, horses, cars, and deer are not my favorite. Sadly, all great modes of transportation. Maybe not deer. I don't know. I've never tried to ride a deer, but yes. So now, hmm, 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 hmm. Now I'm going to do sort of a medium stripe of blue, and I'm going to go horizontal on that one. So I'm going to turn the page because that's going to make it easier for me to do this. And anything you can do to make something like this easier for yourself, just do it. It's how you get there. Or rather, well, you could say it's how you get there. It's how you enjoy yourself when you're painting. It's the journey. It's all that. But it's the end result. It really is. Like however you got to get it to just look good, just do it. Don't worry about it. Now I want this to be a thinner line than the big thick anchoring line, and I typically start with a very thick anchoring line when I do this for plaids. And then I sort of work my way down to thinner and thinner and thinner lines. And I like to have, if I'm making up a plaid and I'm just doing it for my own enjoyment, I typically do a real thick line, a medium line, two running parallel thin lines, and then like a dash. And I'm going to see how busy this gets, but I might throw all of these into Heathcliff's really depressing coat. I want it to be so depressing that Tim Burton took a look at it and was like, we can't use this in one of my movies. Does anyone have any black and white stripes? That's all we're going to use in this movie. We can't use this coat. It's too drab. I need more solid bars. And again, I'm breaking up the plaid across the collar because it would. It would not go together very neatly. They are two separate pieces of fabric, and you want to think of it that they're two separate pieces of fabric, or it will look weird. And it can have stuff like this. It can just not quite line up perfectly because it's a separate piece of fabric. And if you look at a coat, they're always a little bit of a mess around the collar and the sleeves because of stuff like that. Okay. Ooh, that is a drab coat. Okay. I'm not going to put a pattern on his tie because that would be too much. That would be really, really, really hard for the eye to just take in. And I'm still going to darken this plaid up even afterwards. This fabric is going to sort of fade into the back eventually. Thank you, Matt. Who and what are some of the inspirations for my work? I mentioned last night I really like Sam Keith, who did the Max, and I love Tony DiTerlizzi. I think that Tony DiTerlizzi is terrific. In particular, the work that he did on Dungeons and Dragons Second Edition Planescape. Everything in that box set is absolutely gorgeous, and if you Google that, it's all really, really beautiful. I like Bill Watterson's work an awful lot with Calvin and Hobbes and his watercolors. Who else? I like Janet Hill a lot. She's an oil painter, and she makes these like really, really beautiful sort of classic kitschy paintings that always have kind of like a really sort of funny thing going on in them sometimes. Uh, Her stuff is really, really cool. And I like Joe James a lot, who does Cart Before the Horse. And Joe James actually sculpts and sews together like folk art dolls and figurines that are just absolutely gorgeous and out of this world and just really, really cool. Um, and yeah, so those are some of the artists that I like quite a bit, that I follow and enjoy. I gotta give Heathcliff some lips, and I gotta give him a little bit of a ruddiness in his complexion, or he will look dead. Oops. Help if you could see him. There we go. There we go. Here he is. Give him like a readiness to, more like a, just like a little bit of color in his cheeks, not too much. And I really want it to kind of look like he's been out on those moors, just being miserable. There he goes. Oh, it is probably time or dryness enough to do Buttercup's freckles, so I'm going to jump to those real quick. This is how I paint when I paint a page of comics. I paint all 4 daily strips at the same time, and I just sort of sweep across the page, putting in all of the yellows at once and all of the reds at once. I jump around a lot. It works for me. Give her a few little freckles, dot them off with the paper towel being a little bit wet. Now, I have freckles, so I'm very biased about them, but I think they look cute. And I like to do them on paintings sometimes. Not all the time, but sometimes. I'm going to pull some of the pigment off of these with a wet piece of paper, though, so that they're not too dark. I just want like kind of a hint of freckles that are kind of cute. Let's see if I can show it. I don't know if that's focusing well enough, but they are there. There's a few of them in there. Oh, good night, the Brat Queen. Thank you for keeping us company. I'm going to make this pin that Heathcliff is wearing also sort of a miserable brassy metal. Just because it would be weird to throw another color in there. And now I think we are ready for the dark green of his plaid. Get that. Get a nice sort of sharp point on this wet paint brush. Pull the line through and see what we got. Yes. Oh, help if you could see it. Here we go. Pull all these lines through. Why you know animate a cat, George? I have no idea how to do animation. That is a whole skill set that takes years and years and a degree. And painting and art also take years and years, and that's where I went. The man, his degree is actually in animation, though he works as a video editor now, but he can do animation, and he does his own. He does pixel art animation for indie video games on the side, and he's working on one right now actually, and it's pretty amazing to see it come together. I am just not able to do animation myself, but I think it is a very, very cool process, and I have a lot of respect for it. Do I think it will ever be time to move on from Breaking Cat News? Maybe another project or comic. I love working on Breaking Cat News, and right now I would be very, very happy to Charles Schultz this and just do it forever. That would be a dream for me, and I would really enjoy it. I do say if there's ever comes a time where I just feel like I've done all I can do, and maybe the stories aren't there, then I would consider it just to kind of preserve it as where it is and keep it in a good place. But I feel really good about it right now. I love working on it, and I enjoy the process of coming up with the new stories and writing for it right now, and it feels very good. Uh, so, but when it comes to other projects or other comics, I am finishing up an older comic that I was writing before Breaking Cat News called Swan Eaters. I'm adding new strips to that right now. It has already been written and outlined. I just have to do the actual art to finish the story because Swan Eaters had a beginning, a middle, and an end. And I'm about 3/4 of the way through it, and I just need to wrap it up for its poor readers who have been so faithful and so patient. Um, and then after that, maybe like another small side one, or uh, I'm someone who enjoys having a lot of projects kind of going. When I have a moment, I like to work on them. Yes, yes, this is a miserable plaid. and and so what I would really like to do at some point is write and illustrate a children's book. That's been a dream of mine since I was a kid, and I still really would love to do that. This year, for my New Year's resolution, excuse me, I've been talking a lot. For my New Year's resolution, I cleared everything. I wrapped up every project I had behind me in 2019. I finished everything. My New Year's resolution was I was going to say no to like every new possible project or offer or commission or anything in 2020. And the only thing I was going to work on was pitching a children's book. And I worked on notes for it, and I worked on some sketches, and I have a couple of ideas. And then everything happened. And it's hard enough just doing my regular work right now. And also I'm homeschooling my kids at the moment because school in our state was canceled for the rest of the school year. So I'm doing distance schooling and homeschooling for my children at the moment, and also writing 365 comics a year, and that's a lot. So I'm kind of giving myself some grace and just, hey kid, you'll get there. You'll do it. This might not be the year. And so I still really want to, and it's still going to be something that I work toward, but it just might not happen right now, and that's okay because other stuff has to happen right now. Like if you have a dream, just like hold on to it. Just keep running forward with it. Just don't let it go. Keep running and keep holding on to it, and just don't let it go. Oh, oh, I have done some sci-fi stuff. I should show you, Matt. I used to do a lot of sci-fi and a lot of horror in a funny way. Oh, that is true. It is only mid-April. Thank you, Ashley. And Leah says, I have no idea how you're doing it all. I don't have kids, and I feel like I'm not getting much done. Thank you. Thank you for that acknowledgement. um, yeah, it's hard. This is really hard. This is hard for everyone. Everyone in different ways, and we're all feeling. I don't know. We're just. I can't even finish the train of thought. That's what keeps happening to me. I keep losing my train of thought all the time, and sleep has been really wild for me. Um, and so yeah, just be as good to yourself as you can be right now. Take good care of yourself, and just you know every day do your best. And some of our days, our best is going to be just kind of getting through it and comforting ourselves. Um, I I would. I've been asked, would I think of partnering with an author of a children's book or writing the story myself? Writing the story myself. I have tried to work with other people before on stories, and it turns out there is a huge disconnect. If I haven't written it, I can't see it. And it took me a lot of years to understand that about myself, and then to even admit it, because I was offered a couple of different projects to illustrate, and two of them in particular would have been really cool, and I really wish that I had gotten to do it. Um, I couldn't make it happen. I tried. I really, really, really tried, and it just. I think now, especially working with Breaking Cat News the last few years, and especially um, having an opportunity to get so intimately intertwined in a project that's my own, I am really realizing that if it comes from someone else, I can't see it, and I'm not going to draw it properly, and it's not going to work out. and it's just going to be a lot of frustration for me and for the other person. So it is, I would prefer to work on it on my own. It's the kind of thing where I would wait it out until I could just write it myself. Because when I am writing and I am drawing, it's the same machine. It's the same machine. As I'm writing, or rather, as I'm drawing my own stories, I'm writing them as they happen, and so it's very hard to pull apart those two things. Um, it's like an orange. The pulpy part is the story, and then I draw the skin. So I can't. It's hard to pull them apart for me. And I've only just realized that the last year or so. Yay! All right, have a good night, Matt. Oh, an inspirational picture book for adults. I would like that. It's funny. One of the things that I once worked on that I might still illustrate was a Plan B through Z breakup book. Like if your relationship doesn't work and you get dumped by someone basically. It was in response to getting dumped, and it was plans B through Z, and it was all the things you could do instead. And it was I think it was kind of inspirational when I wrote it. And I still have all of the plans, and I might do that at some point, and that would be more for grown-ups if I did that. I have many, many authors who do want to collaborate, and that is, I want no part of it. I know that sounds like an awful thing to say, but I have tried to work with so many authors on illustrating books, and I'm no good at it when it's not coming from my own head. I can't draw. I can't draw something that hasn't. I don't know. I have the things described to me, and we go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And even if they're happy with it, I'm not happy with it. So, no, I have a lot of authors who, and they're published authors, some of them who want me to collaborate on stuff with them. And that's awesome. And I'm very grateful that people would want that for me. And I've had to apologize to several people who we started projects and nope. Nope. And I felt really bad about it and really guilty and really weird for a long time. And then it just kind of hit me like a year ago. I was like, "Oh, I can't do it if it's not coming from me." So there's some weird quirk of that. We all work in different ways, and that's one of the ways that I seem to have to work. All right, now this is dried enough that I'm gonna try to add like a little dotted line to this plaid. And this broken up plaid line is a little bit of like a tweed almost. And move it along the middle of the collar like that. So again, when you kind of look at a plaid, especially a painting of a plaid, because people will ask me, "Oh my goodness, how do you paint plaid?" Uh, it can kind of, at a glance, it looks really complicated, but you've seen me do it here tonight, and it's just a series of 4 different kinds of lines, all sort of laid out on each other, and that's all. And here we go. Okay. I don't know a lot about how the chats work on YouTube. I'm still getting used to YouTube itself. So we're kind of learning at the same time. I think a lot of chats come with stuff like that, as I've seen on YouTube or Twitch or even sometimes Facebook Lives. It happens. I have no idea though. I don't know. Now, after going through a lot of these patterns on Heathcliff's coat, I'm still going to make it sort of dark so that you just kind of get like a sort of an impression of the pattern itself. He's still wearing a lot of dark stuff, and he still just looks more miserable. Here we go. All right. Still doing some of the details to his hair. I might go in with pen and do more details to that. And I think for these three for tonight, I might be wrapping up. I'm not sure. I'm gonna see. Me. It might come to that at some point, David. This is just very, very casual right now, though. You know, it's not. I'm not at that point yet. But this is stuff that we're learning about it. When I was on Twitch, I had to have the man and our friend Nick Tram as moderators every time I went on Twitch because Twitch had like bad stuff that they would put into chats. I mean, bad. Like it was a lot, and that was Twitch. As a platform keeps kind of trying to get to a point where it can have artists sort of just like do a lot of work, kind of like Bob Ross, and it's awesome, and I love what they're trying to do, but they're not there yet. Because I would never really run. I wouldn't want to have kids in a channel with Twitch yet. It's just been a few weird experiences, so that's been kind of unfortunate for Twitch. Um, yeah, Twitch is pretty toxic sometimes. It really is. There's a lot about Twitch I like, and we have friends who do Let's Plays on Twitch, and they're terrific. But the experience can just be kind of weird, and so I wanted to try and move the video aspects of things off of Twitch. Facebook Live was working great because we have so many people on the Facebook group page, but then of course not everyone's on Facebook, and so that's why we tried YouTube. The man told me today, Ryan, my husband, Ryan told me today that there's a way that he can take this feed and then he can kind of make it so that when I come on here, it also simultaneously broadcasts to Facebook and to Twitch, and possibly to Twitter. We're not sure on that one, but we know Facebook and Twitch can be done at the same time, and so I might do that. But I would direct folks with kiddos here, and then it would be more. We would probably moderate the chat, or mod the chat, if we had bigger numbers is where it would be, because it's not a lot of numbers right now, and the bigger numbers draw some of the problems that we were seeing on Twitch, which I won't get into, but we've all been on the internet long enough, you can guess. It wasn't great. Yes, yeah, there's a lot of Twitch I love. Like, we watch Aries on Twitch a lot. He's a Let's Play streamer guy, um, in the fighting game community, and I love to watch him. My best friend, Preston, Preston Can't Play is his Let's Play, but I think he has that on YouTube mostly. And I'm very good friends with FC Racers, who is a Twitch player. He's a speedrunner for the game Celeste, and he's terrific. He's very, very, very good. Um, well, it's not that late here. It's 12:30, but I'm a bit of a night owl, so I'm more of a 1 a.m. 2 a.m. kind of person. And that was in the before times. That was before things were really bad. I was trying to get to a point where I slept a little bit more, and I went to bed at like 11:30, like a grown up. And I began that in January. It was part of like my New Year's. I'm gonna do this. Not quite a resolution, but more of a restart of good habits. And Mm-mm. It hasn't worked out very much. The man and I right now, we finish up the night and we go to bed around maybe like midnight-ish or 1, and then we watch a Rumpole of the Bailey, which is very nice. And then that's around after that. That's when we finally fade off to sleep. But I'm not tired yet. But I am tired enough that my painting energy is dwindling down. I can tell that if I start another one, I'm gonna start making mistakes. That's when I know I'm a little bit tired. Oh, thank you, David. You were bringing up very good points, David. Like I don't want to just be dismissing of like, oh, we can't do the mod yet, or like, no, you're absolutely right. These are things that have to be done in the future for sure. That we're still working out while we're getting used to this. Um, oh, Trillion Hunter, I'm glad that this has been amazing and been helping with painting. I get blocks with stuff and blocks with painting and blocks with creativity a lot. That always you're doing it right if that's happening. That's part of it. It really is. Ryan, when we first got together, gave me some great advice on that. When he has a creative block, and I've watched him do this over the years now too. When he has a creative block, he doesn't really force it. He kind of switches gears into really taking in and absorbing the things that made him excited about painting and drawing in the first place. So there will be movies that he really likes, or there will be like a comic that he really likes, and he kind of switches gears into rereading something that used to kind of inspire him or spark him, or looking into something new that does that. And a lot of times that kind of shakes the gears for him and really helps. And then I've started doing that too. And I'll kind of go back to comfort creative projects. I mentioned Red Dwarf before, which is a British sci-fi show that I loved when I was a child. And so if I go back to that, it's a setting that I really like. The kinds of settings I enjoy are very much like the comic. It's like the big pink house, basically, when characters are in one static setting together and they kind of have to work in that very small world. Um, so Red Dwarf and Star Trek, things like that, like kind of space explorer shows, work really well in those kind of settings. Cheers is another one of those settings. We don't leave Cheers that often. We do, but we don't that often. The Office is a little bit of that, but you do see the characters leave it as well too. But I really like kind of like one setting sort of stories. Uh, oh, yeah. So I think I think that I probably am going to wrap this one up because we did 3, and that's pretty cool. I might paint these later off camera, or I might do this again maybe tomorrow night, or maybe when I'm doing the nighttime ones, obviously these are way more laid back. When I'm announcing a talk beforehand for daytime and I'm letting people know when it's scheduled, and I'm giving people a few days' notice, and I have more of a structure to it of what I'm doing. These nighttime streams are practicing for those, sort of. So this is obviously much more laid back. I'm just kind of working on what I want to work on, and I'm wearing my jammy jams like I was last night. And yeah, so I really enjoy like the late night crowd. Like, thank you. Some of you were here last night too, and this is just really nice. It's really cool when I have the daytime readers too, and the daytime crowd. But it's kind of nice when it's just a few of us and it's like kind of small and we're just hanging out. And I really appreciate. I don't know. I just really appreciate it. Thank you. And it helps me. This helps me practice this so much because this is really new to me. And it's something that I've wanted to do for a long time, but while we're going through all of this, and it's kind of a way to like visit or sort of keep company in a strange really nice kind of speaking of Star Trek way of being on the other end of screens. I don't know. It's just a nice opportunity to try it, and it's been really cool the last 2 nights. And thank you. Um, oh yes, house quiet and kids asleep. This is I'm a night owl. I really enjoy nighttime and late at night. This is when I get some of my best work done, and this is when I kind of I don't know sort of come alive after a busy day. Yay! All right. All right, I'm going to start to switch this off. So I hope that everyone has a good night. I hope that you stay healthy and are doing well tonight and can get some good sleep. That would be really cool. Yeah. So all right, have a great night, and I'm gonna look for the button to turn it off. Where's the mouse? Here's the mouse. Okay. All right. Bye. Have a great night, everyone. Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Bye.